Next, we're going to move along to the sea climates, our mild mid-latitude climates. Just as with the others, we want to figure out where they're located, what their general characteristics are, and why. Study the global distribution, focusing on the red, orange, and pale yellow colors. As their name implies, the mild mid-latitude climates are found in the mid-latitudes, typically along the coast of these mid-latitudes, thus the mild characteristics. Usually sea climates are found between 30 and 60 degrees north and south latitude. Occasionally they can get up as high as 65 degrees or so, but usually between 30 and 60. Interestingly, these mild mid-latitude climates have the greatest weather variation of all the climate types over days or weeks. What we mean is there can be a lot of variability from one day to the next, or from 1 week to the next. This is due to where they are. They're located within the westerlies. Between 30 and 60 degrees is where the westerlies dominate. And we've already mentioned that the westerlies tend to bring variable weather because sometimes they might come from the northwest and sometimes from the southwest. So the mid-latitudes lack the consistent warmth of the equator, and they lack the consistent cool of the poles. But depending on the day or week, they might get a little of either. Interestingly, the sea climates also have seasons. This is different than the A climates, which were warm year-round. In the mild mid-latitude sea climates, we tend to have hot, long summers and short, mild winters. You can see we're going to divide the sea climates into 3 different subtypes based on both the precipitation pattern and on temperature. For the second letter, we're going to use the same codes that we used for the A climates, right? F was year-round moisture, W was the winter dry season, and here actually we're introducing a new one. Little s is a summer dry season. For the temperatures, we're going to be using A, B, and C for hot, warm, and cool. Notice the distribution of these 3 subtypes of sea climates. How would you describe them? How are the red and the pale yellow oriented relative to one another? And how about the orange? Lastly, we should note that we live in a sea climate. We, at least those of you who live around the college in California, live in a mild mid-latitude climate. So I encourage you to pay extra close attention so you have a good understanding of your own location. Here's a brief summary of what I just went over regarding the general location and characteristics of the sea climates. Next, we're going to get into the general location and characteristics of the subtypes of the sea climates. The first sea climate that we're going to discuss is called the Mediterranean climate, which is represented in red here. And for most of us, it's where we live. You can see where the Mediterranean climate got its name, as almost all the way around the Mediterranean, we have this same climate. First, though, before we get into the Mediterranean climate, let's review what these letters mean again. The second letter deals with precipitation, and we'll use some of the same letters that we did for the A climates, though there's no monsoon in the mid-latitudes, so we don't have to worry about that one. F means year-round moisture. W means a winter dry season. And we're introducing a new one, a small s, which is a summer dry season. So you can see in the Mediterranean climates, we have a summer dry season. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Then for the third letter, the summer temperatures, we're going to use the terms, or the letters A, B, C, and D for hot, warm, cool, and cold. But actually in the Mediterranean region, it's a mild mid-latitude climate. We don't have any cold summer weather. So we'll just be using A, B, and C. All right, so let's check out the Mediterranean climate where we live. I absolutely encourage you to take some notes as we discuss the climate type of our region. The Mediterranean climate type is found at approximately 35 degrees north and 35 degrees south on the western sides of continents. Check that out. Right here, both in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. 35 degrees north and south only on the western sides of the continents. Another thing worth noting is that the Mediterranean climate is the smallest of all the climate types, including how much area it covers. So even though you think our particular climate is very normal, per se, it's actually a very distinctively different climate than the rest of the world, and there's not that many places in the world that have this climate. In particular, what makes us strange is this summer dry season. The Mediterranean climate is the only climate type that has a summer dry season. Most places on Earth have rain in the summertime, which is great for agriculture, but not where we live. We have a summer dry season, which makes agriculture a little bit more challenging. So again, even though you think it's normal that it doesn't rain for 4 to 6 months or more here, it's crazy odd. For instance, I grew up in Minnesota over here. The wettest month of the year is June, and that's similar for much of the Midwest and the East Coast. The summer months are wet. We here in the Mediterranean climate in California and around the Mediterranean, parts of Australia, South Africa, and southern South America are strange and unique in that we have a summer dry season. So why is it that we have a summer dry season? Let's check it out. For much of the year, we're in the westerlies, getting variable weather and rain. But in the summertime, when all the pressure systems shift a bit to the north, the subtropical high, instead of being focused around 30, is more focused around 35 degrees or so. So we're influenced by the subtropical high in the summertime. And as we know, high pressure means descending air, so there's no uplift. No uplift means no clouds and no rain. Instead, we have clear, beautiful blue skies all summer. Why don't they have that on the East Coast? Well, remember, where they're getting their weather from. They're getting the weather from the continental interiors pushed towards the East Coast. So they're having the very hot weather from the interior of the continent, which causes a low pressure, a convective low pressure, so they get thunderstorms and that sort of thing happening, and that's get pushed this direction. Further, they have warm water currents coming in here that can add moisture to the system as well. On the west coast, we have a cold current coming down from here, which further enhances that high pressure system. Similarly, all the other places here have cool currents coming through, and they're about 35 degrees north and south latitude. Mediterranean regions around the world tend to get about 15 to 25 inches of rain per year, and most all of that falls in the wintertime. Our summers are virtually rainless. And again, I can't stress this enough. You think it's normal, but it's not. It's crazy strange. We can divide the Mediterranean climates up a bit further by their summer temperature. The coastal regions will tend to have a little bit more mild temperatures, so a warm summer. That's probably us. And then the interior regions, like say Sacramento, Stockton, Fresno, that are further away from the coast, have a more continental pattern in that they get very hot summers and a little bit cooler in the winter as well. All right, let's check out the climograph. Mediterranean climates have a fairly distinctive climograph. First of all, you can tell it's a sea climate because there's not a huge hump here. There's not a huge difference between summer and winter, but a small difference, producing this kind of smaller hump here. Okay, but what's distinctive is in the warm months of the year is when we have the dry season. Dry seasons are a problem in California, as this is precisely the time when our agricultural areas need water. This has led California to construct an amazing system of dams, reservoirs, and aqueducts. We'll discuss this later in the course when we cover river systems. Notably, though, this Mediterranean climate is also amazing culturally. Since there's not enough water to support extensive forests, Instead, we see grasslands and scattered oak woodlands dominating, as in this picture here. Early settlers could not grow water-hungry crops, so they relied on the grass and grazing animals that the grasslands could support. Thus, California is a dairy state. We produce lots of milk and cheese. Additionally, other drought-tolerant food plants were grown as well, including dates and figs, and most importantly, grapes. Thus, California is a major wine producer. Indeed, all the best cheese and wine regions of the world are Mediterranean climates. Let's check it out. France, Spain, Italy, Chile, South Africa, Australia, and California. Interesting, eh? So even though the species are different in terms of the grasses and trees that are supported in these grassland and woodland areas, the landscapes looks pretty much the same in all of these regions. Let's check out a climograph of South Africa. Again, just a mild difference between summer and winter, but clearly a seasonal change. And then in the summertime, right, we have a dry season.